Well, hello dear friends, it's lovely to be with you again. I'm going to be making some lovely ephemera today. I just am running quite low on things that I could use to decorate with. So I'm going to be using some stamps, and this particular stamp is going to be the sort of star of the show. I'm going to use that as a frame and then stamp smaller images in that, and then we'll color them. I'll be using my archival ink, which is acid free and it's permanent and waterproof, and I've got a little stamping block here. The paper I'm going to be using is the Dalerani Mixed Media Multi-Techniques, and it's an A4 size and it's 160 GM squared, so it's quite a nice quality to be able to work with. So let's get started on this and see how much ephemera we can make in no time at all. So I'm just going to mount this stamp onto my stamping block, and because it's got straight lines, I'm just using the grid on the stamping block just to make sure that that lies flat. Just, you know, try and get it as straight as possible. It's going to make it easier when you come to line up things on your paper itself. And I'm going to use my archival ink, and I'm just going to dab this in. I do like the archival ink because it's actually quite nice and juicy, I find. And I'm using the top line of my stamping block as a guide, and I'm going to line that up with the top of my paper. So I'm using my fingers just to measure that, and I'm putting this stamping block on the edge of the page. I'm going to just re-ink it because otherwise it's not enough, and I'm using this line up against the edge of the previous one, and again lining up with the top, so they will be fairly close to each other. And I'm just going to stamp the top row like that all the way to the end, and already you can see this is going to go quite nice and quickly. And then for the second row, I'm just going to leave that gap space there, line it up with the edge, and just repeat all the way along until I've finished my whole page. Well, there you have it, and that didn't take long at all. So I'm just going to put my ink pad away, just blot off my stamp here. You could use baby wipes, of course. And then we'll start with using the images. So one of the things that will be important is that, generally speaking, you want the image to fit with inside your frame. So if I'm having a look at this, I could see that that little butterfly would fit in nicely. So let's do that one first. Put them on our little block, and I'm going to just do one row of each of the images that I'm selecting. So I'm going to do the butterfly first. Try and position it so it's in the middle of your frame. That will make your life easier. And in fact, because I've got a bit of space at the top, I might put some slightly higher so that I can put a little bit of something underneath, maybe a bit of text or a number. We'll see. I'll put this one back in the center. Right, so we'll move on to the next one now. And for this, I think I'm going to use, oh, I do like that little dandelion. Now, there's nothing wrong with making your image go sideways. What I will need for this is something just to mask the end. So let me just grab a piece of paper here, a piece of card, and what I'm going to do is to line that up with this line on the edge so that it doesn't actually print past the border of the frame. Okay, so here you want to just be mindful of what you're doing. Position that so that that's in the correct place. Isn't that lovely? Right, let's do a row of these. And I know the stem says happy birthday, but it doesn't really matter. I'll stamp that off. I've got another dandelion, so I'll just try one with a different, I think it's slightly bigger, but let's just do two different kinds. Still working with the dandelion. Moving my mask along. And the last one, here we go. That's lovely. Okay, so I didn't ink that one up. It's come out as almost like a shadow print, slightly lighter. But that's okay. You know, you don't always necessarily have to have a dark image. That was just me in my excitement. I forgot. It happens. Right, I've got some lovely little birds here. So that little blue tit will fit in quite nicely. Just got to work out how you'd like him to line there. I think I'd want the word straight, so I'm going to put him down at that angle. So get the word straight. So that means I've got to put him right down at the bottom. There we go, that's nice. If you're uncertain about how these are going to look, then you can always just do one on a piece of A4 paper, do a frame and then stamp it in there just so that you're happy. And off we go. Having such lovely rain here today. It's really, I can just say, so welcome, because it's been such a hot, dry summer, as I'm sure those of you in the UK have experienced, and those of you that live elsewhere in the world have probably heard about the terrible heat and stuff that we've had. And we had really great rain in the night, and very, very welcome. I'm going to do some with bugs because they're always quite fun, and if you do things like field journals or that kind of stuff, they will always add into your design easily. Just make sure we stick that down. This one I'm going to do lengthwise. The next one I think I'm going to give a bit more space at the bottom because I might want to put some wording or a number there. Okay. How's your week been? I must say I do struggle with the heat. I think because I work outside all the time, not in an office where we've got fans and things, it's a little bit more tricky. I don't mind working outside, let me just say that, but it can be a bit tiring. It just sort of drains you. And I work in horticulture with special needs adults, and I must say this year everything has grown so well because of the heat. We've got giant sized pumpkins, really giant, which have been fascinating to watch. When I say giant, I mean like really big ones like that. So they're fun. We've even got one where we've got one stem but two pumpkins that are co-joined growing off the same stem, and that's been quite fun to watch as well. So yeah, nature is amazing, and we'll see. Next to the field where I work, where we've got all our polytunnels and raised beds, there's a glamping field, and normally there's a business that hires that field and they just have camps, but we're having a summer camp with a whole lot of families and things, and I think they've got 5 or 6 different camps that run right into August. So that field has become a hive of activity with marquees and all sorts of things going up. And then some of the groups that come will be families, some will be people who live in hostels, others will be, you know, maybe a church group of some sort. But it goes right through the summer, and it's lovely. And we like to be able to share some of the produce that we grow. We've got beautiful apple trees, Bramley apples, pink ladies, and others. And we encourage them to come and pick, because they can get into our area through the field gate. Right. Enough of that waffle. Right, so that's what that looks like at this stage. So now I'm going to just let the ink dry completely, which won't take very long because obviously it's on paper and it's absorbent. And then we'll come and we'll start to color this. And I think I'm probably just going to use my Ranger products, Distress Spray Stains, maybe an oxide, or maybe a mica stain. We'll see. But I'll come back to you when it's dry. I forgot to add in some text and numbers, so I'm going to do that quickly. I'm just going to put this at the bottom of Yeah, I'm going to put this one here. Just adds another little layer of interest. And I'm going to do this one here on the side of these flowers. Might not make them all the same. Okay, and then I think I'll just change this up a little bit. I've got quite a lot of numbers and things here, so I've got a fair amount of space next to the dandelions. So let's get this on. You just have to always make sure that you're getting them in the right way up, because it's very easy just to grab something and just stick them down without them being in the correct position. Let's put one of these over here, and maybe another one of these. It's a bit heavy for that design, I think. Let's find something a little bit more delicate. What about this one here? That's quite a fine print. Yeah, that's better. And I'll just use the shadow of that to give it a lighter effect, and we'll do one of these on this side. This is a fabulous way to build up your stash, really fabulous, and as you can see, quite quick, quite a nice easy project to do. Okay, let this dry and I'll be back with you. Okay, so I basically went ahead and stamped a second page with some similar but not completely the same designs, and I'm going to try on this first page, if I just get this one out the way, a watercolor technique. I'm going to wet most of this background, and then I'm going to just, oopsie, I used a pigment ink pad on that one, so it's already starting to bleed, so I've just got to be a bit careful. I'll skip that one. I'm not wanting to spend a long time coloring these images realistically. I'm wanting just to get a little bit of sort of almost like a stained mark on them. So I'm just going to coat my paper in water. It will cause it to curve, which is what happens with paper when it gets wet. And then I'm going to just drip some colors in and just let them do their own thing, more or less. Then I'm going to leave this to dry before I decide what I want to do next. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Right, see you in a few minutes. Well, as you can see, the colors have dried considerably lighter than they were when we sprayed them on, but I do feel I would like just a splatter of maybe some white on there, and maybe a little bit of a sort of browny earth tone. So I'm just going to get some gesso and a little bit of paint, and we'll mix up a thin consistency to be able to do some splatters. So on my laminated sheet I have some gesso which I've diluted with water, and this is just some ground espresso. I just thought it's liquid already, so I'm going to take my brush and just wet it so that it is already nice and moist, and I'm just going to splatter some of this on. I wonder if I shouldn't be doing the brown first. Let's do the brown splatters first. Yeah, there we go. and I can even mix some with my gesso to give a softer color. It's all about playing. There's no right and wrong way. You know, everybody's got a different style. Just one thing when you're splattering is just try and alter the way in which you splatter. It's a bit like working with a sponge. You don't want to come at it from the same direction, otherwise you'll get the same kind of marks throughout your work. And you could use other colors here as well. I mean, I could have splattered with a speckled egg. I could have used my lumberjack plaid, any of those colors, but this will just add another layer of marks onto this. And then when this is dry, I'm going to just cut them up and make them up into a couple of pieces of ephemera. I won't do all of them, just to give you some idea of what you can do with them. Let's do the other one now. Actually, I'm just going to lay that one flat so that it doesn't drip. You'll see it will be completely different when we start to cut them out. Completely different. You're not going to see as much of the yellow and the very strong pinks because they're going to be separated from this background color. Just telling you this for those of you that can't visualize things ahead of time, because it's quite hard if you don't have that visual brain. Okay, so let's leave this to dry, and then I'm going to cut them out and we'll be able to work on making them into ephemera. So here's some of the finished items that I've made. This is a journal card. It's quite nice. I can just put it into a tuck spot, and I love how the colors have married up here. This was just a piece of a masterboard that I cut up that I'd used. I'd taken just strips of an old Daphne's diary and made the masterboard. This is another piece of Daphne's diary mounted on a paint swatch, and I've just threaded through some fine muslin, and this was underneath the butterfly was a picture of a carpet, which I've just trimmed down, but I like the colors that now marry up with that. This was part of a masterboard. I've just put a little bit of fabric in there just to soften the images. And then we've got a couple of these, which are also journal cards, but you could also make them into tuck spots as well. Nice with the little birds. This was just where when I've got extra paint, I kind of just swish it onto the paper, and I tore it up into strips and made a masterboard. So the backing of this is actually that masterboard used this way, and I've done the same with this with another little bit of an image on the side. And then I have these 3 tags. I'll show you those. Come out really nicely, and there's space for journaling on the back. And here's another little journal card. I've got a little piece of fabric here that I ultimately would put an embellishment on here, but because I don't know where it's going to go, I thought I'd leave that for now. And then I have these little ones too that I've done just with odd bits and pieces of paper lying around. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for being with me today. Please consider subscribing to my channel and give me a thumbs up if you like this, and don't forget to put the notification bell on, otherwise you won't know when I've posted a new video. Bye for now.